Welcome to Inspire Campfire, a podcast where ordinary people tell their stories of extraordinary adventure. These are campfire stories meant to inspire the rest of us to light the fire within, get outside, follow our dreams, and return to tell our own stories. Ready? Let's strike the match.
I am your host, Scott Wurzbacher, and this is a podcast where we talk a lot about adventure. And we've had some amazing guests on the podcast that have been on incredible journeys. Yet, this podcast is not just about the places that we go. It's also about that voice inside each of us that calls us to adventure. And what we found through this first 6 months of the podcast is that when people answer the calling to go into nature, they are overwhelmingly looking for a sense of peace. Nature seems to be a place of healing and a place where peace can be found. And I know that's certainly true for me. Today, we're going to be talking to somebody that knows this firsthand through her work as a wilderness therapy guide. Our guest is Raileigh Duschen from Asheville, North Carolina, and she's here to talk with us about the healing powers of nature that she's witnessed, especially with young people. Raileigh is not only a wilderness guide, she's also a certified yoga and meditation guide, a transformation coach, and host of the awesome podcast, Awareness Rising. Raileigh, welcome to the campfire.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to share about my journey, and thank you for providing this platform for ordinary people, ordinary people like me. It's a true honor, and there is so much to share, so much wisdom through the outdoors, and I'm excited to be here and speak with you. Thank you.
Well, thank you. You are so not ordinary, but I guess we all can say that to some degree. I'd love to just start by going straight to wilderness therapy because some of our listeners, maybe they've not heard that term before. So I wonder if we could just start with you sharing what is wilderness therapy?
Yeah, wilderness therapy is truly just therapy. I am not a therapist, but it's therapy in the outdoors. And I was just a wilderness guide through a therapeutic program where children were invited to come out and live in base camps, cabins, that go backpacking for usually around 3 months. It depends on the program, but for my program I worked with, it was 90 to 100 days that the kids would come out and truly live on the land, learning all types of survival skills, but also therapeutic skills. So these kids were outside for most of the day, every single day, except mostly to sleep.
Yeah, that's amazing. So what was the kind of the age group of the kids that you were working with? Like 90 days in the woods is a long time.
That's a long time. I wouldn't be out there for that long. I would do shifts of 2 weeks and
Got
2
it.
weeks off.
Okay.
So normally around 50 days, 15 days, not 50.
Yeah.
And yeah, the kids I worked with were anywhere from 10 to 17, and I have heard of adult programs too. And the kids I mostly worked with were the girls, and they were probably around 13 to 17 years old. And I was 22 at the time when
Okay.
I worked with that program. So I wasn't too far from them.
Yeah, well then, so they certainly could relate to you because the age
Yes.
difference wasn't that great. But 90 days in the woods for a 13-year-old, that's a long
Yes.
time. So can you kind of talk us through what that 90 days looks like for them?
Mm. I compare it to the stages of grief. So,
Love
these kids were brought out and they had no idea. So these were kids who were struggling at home.
it.
It was a family therapy program. So while the kids were in the woods going through their therapy, the parents were also going through their own. And that's how the program would work. I think it would be awesome to have the whole family out there for 90 days, see
Yeah,
how that would work.
yeah.
Um, and sorry, what was your question about the kids?
Yeah, just so what does that 90 days look like for
Yeah.
those kids? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
13-year-olds in the woods for 90 days. It's a long
Yeah.
time.
So comparing that again to the stages of grief, yeah, they hated it at first. I remember this one girl, she was 15 or 16, and the parents don't tell them because you can't really you don't want a kid's not gonna wanna do this, obviously.
Yeah.
So a lot of them get gooned, which is a professional kidnapper. And they come and take the kids in the middle of the night, put them in a cop car, and they're driven sometimes across the state, and then they're thrown into the woods with someone like me. And they
Wow.
have no idea why they're there. So at first they're angry or they're really scared. And I remember this one girl, she was brought out in a whole snowstorm
Wow.
in winter. And I couldn't imagine being in her shoes, just absolutely not knowing what's going on, being brought out with a pack. Everything is taken from you, your clothes, your belongings, and you're just giving survival gear in a backpack. And then she's tossed into the woods with us, and we're like, "Hey," all dirty and smelly, and super excited because the only excitement you really have besides a waterfall or an animal or a flower is, someone new. Um, so yeah, they'd be angry at first, scared, but I would watch their journey over time and come back in and see students over time, and they'd go through stages of truly acceptance, sometimes really enjoying it. But the feeling of missing home never leaves. But the beautiful thing about the program is, and what I experienced when I would go home, is the sense of gratitude when you do finally go home for simple things like hot water, having shelter, and a bed. It completely transforms your life. Feeling that grateful for every little thing in life.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I know that feeling just coming just coming out from a weekend of voluntarily being out in the woods and camping, but that shower when you get home is amazing. But I wanna emphasize and sort of go back to this visual that you created, that, like, literally these kids are coming to you not having don't really know what's going on. Um, yeah, I mean, what is that like those first few days?
First few days, a lot of crying. And the whole program is adapted to the hero's journey, which I'm sure you're really familiar
Yeah,
with,
we love that on this
right?
podcast.
Yes, of course. So, this to them is their true call to adventure from the beginning. Um, and at first, when you're thrown into the fire, this new adventure, you don't know what's going on. It's really scary, and you just want to cry because you want to go back to the old life. You want to
Yeah,
go back home, but you can't. You have to. And what backpacking teaches you is you got to keep going. And I always had to tell the kids because they would cry and cry, and I can't do this. I can't be here. And then sometimes I would agree with them. I don't want to be here either.
yeah,
This kind of sucks right now. It kind of really sucks right now. It's storming and we're cold. I understand you. But what would happen if we do get through this journey together? What would we learn from this? How can we grow? And I'm going to be right here with you. And I loved actually that I wasn't that much older than the girls I worked with because they saw themselves in me. And as a leader, I got to show the potential of what they could do because I'm doing it. And a lot of them are bigger than me. I'm 5'2".
yeah,
um, so I loved being that inspiration to keep pushing for them, not only to prove myself, which for me, it showed me who I was and how I developed and grew in that type of job position, but just to watch the kids grow and for them to see how amazing they are, how strong they were, that they didn't know it was any way possible for them to do what they did. But would they have discovered it if they weren't given the opportunity? Okay, they were forced, but
yeah.
but still.
Wow. So when they first come to you, I mean, I got to imagine that there's some degree of well, you said the 4 stages, the 5 stages of grief, right? So denial, is there aggression? Is there, like, what are those first few moments like?
Um, each kid is different, and it's funny because it'll show you. I kind of know what to expect from their first night, but also they surprise you. So sometimes a kid won't talk for a few days. They'll just
Yeah.
kind of be reclusive in themselves, hoodie over their head, and then eventually they'll start opening up. And it's like watching a flower bloom and be really beautiful. And other kids, they would just act out, start actually fighting us. I took a few punches. And I understood because I might want to fight somebody
Yeah.
also if
Yeah.
I was, think of being like a teenager. Like
Yeah.
you have your routine, you got your friends, you got your phone, that's all gone. Now you're just sitting here with your thoughts as a kid.
Yeah.
So yeah, a lot of them would fight or they would go within. Um,
Yeah, so you gotta be tough and you gotta be ready for that in those first couple of days. What's the group size like?
Hmm. Uh, no more than 12.
Okay.
So mostly I had at least 5, so anywhere from 5 to 12. It
Yeah.
depended on the group. So who's in the group? There's a character to each group. Each group had a certain type of child and their experience so that they can relate to each other.
Okay.
So some groups were more like introverted, more
Yeah.
sensitive,
Yep.
maybe lots of crying. Other groups are more wild and out. They're fighting every day, trying to run away. They don't really run away. They just pretend to, and then they kind of look over their shoulder, make sure you're following them. It's
Uh,
cute.
I love it. So when the groups come together or when new cut kids come in, I mean, are they all coming in together at the same
Hmm.
time or are they being introduced individually like to an already
Um,
established group?
yeah, no, they come individually. Sometimes more than one would come on the same day, um, but that would always kind of be a bad thing because then those kids would attach to each
Mhm.
other for survival, and if one leaves, it's heartbreaking for them because that's their sense of safety and belonging from the
Yeah.
start. But most of the kids would come in alone, so it's their journey from the beginning that they're
Well,
walking.
and I have to imagine that, that each kid has gone through like has already gone through each of the stages, the ones that are already there. So when new folks come in,
Yes.
then there's got to be, the other kids have already sort of been in their shoes. So I imagine there's some degree of, you know, the kids that have been there for a little while, sort of taking the new ones under their wing. What is that
Yes.
experience like?
No, exactly. So, yeah, all the kids, so when they start the program, they go through stages that they graduate from. I forgot how many stages there were,
Mhm.
but it would go through different, lessons of character. So, learning leadership, learning responsibility, learning accountability, integrity. Um, so for each stage, a kid had opportunity to be a leader in that sense, and they would have roles to, help the new person learn how to build a fire, teach them how to pack their pack, teach them how to properly, um, what's it called, layer your clothing when it's cold.
Mhm.
So it wouldn't always be on me. I would really look to the students to be leaders for themselves. And it was always opportunity for each person, no matter where they were in their journey, to be a leader. Even the new people, they had responsibilities, and it's really important when you're in the environment when we don't have technology. We're in the woods,
Right.
um, so that's how we kind of develop our time is learning skills and teaching skills.
Yeah. You said, I mean, no technology, we're in the woods. Like, there's varying degrees of camping, right? I mean, there's like remote wilderness and then there's like car camping and there's glamping. Can you kind of give us some context of what you guys are
Yeah,
what you guys are dealing with?
yeah. So with that program, they rotated 3 different areas. So one base camp where they would stay in cabins, so they had showers
Okay.
there, and that would be for a week.
Yep.
Then they would rotate, um, maybe backpacking, and backpacking would be the longest phase, 2 weeks, no bathrooms. We are in the wilderness.
Yep.
We are miles away from civilization.
Yep.
There is nobody and nothing except trees and some waterfalls and us.
Yeah.
Um, and then they would take a break from backpacking and go to another base camp, and they would have yurts, which
Yep.
I'm sure you can explain a yurt better than I can.
Yeah, it's like
Um,
it's kind of like, I mean, to some degree, yurts can be glamping, but they're essentially kind of permanent tents, right?
but it's a luxury after backpacking for 15
Yeah,
days. Um, yeah, so they
yeah,
would they would get something different at least every few weeks, but the majority of the time they're backpacking. And as a staff leader, I actually got to choose sometimes where I would come in, but I personally came in always backpacking
okay.
because
Is
that
that
was
your
my
favorite?
first. It was my favorite, but also I took the job never having backpacked before
Okay.
in my life because I love self-development. That's why I'm a life coach. So I was learning with them, and I wanted to take every opportunity I could to be in the mountains. I'm from Florida. So it's also my first time really experiencing mountains, experiencing hiking, experiencing fire making and swimming in waterfalls. I loved it. Also
Yeah.
hated it sometimes with them.
So where did you pick up your wilderness skills? Was it on the job, or did you have some wilderness training beforehand?
I didn't have wilderness training like that. I came from farming. That's what I was doing it for a few months before. And before that, I was fresh out of college. But they trained me on the job.
Got
You
it.
do like a pre-training program. And before every shift, you come in like a day earlier, and experts would train you how to build fire. Um, it was incredible to learn it from people who could start a fire in front of me in seconds
Wow.
with sticks.
Yeah.
But I got to learn those skills. I never ended up busting a coal on a bow drill set, but I still have my set and I still try. But I learned how to use, flint and um, quartz rock and steel. And I still carry it. I have my fire kit in my car. You never know. When
I
I go
love
camping, I try
Well,
to always remember.
and in 90 days, I mean, you're gonna experience some weather too. So it's not, it's, you're gonna get the full elements out there in that period of time.
Yes. So I'm from Florida. So think how I felt with them. In my first shift, it was 12 degrees, 12 degrees. But they taught me really well how to take care of myself. So it
Yeah.
was a learning opportunity for me as well.
Well, and so, you know, there's an uncomfortableness about being in the woods, right? There is a degree of suffering when you're in weather like that, right? I mean, it's not always just warm and, clean, and there's a lot of uncomfortableness.
Yeah.
And but you as a leader have a level of responsibility. So, what is that balance like? I mean, just kind of managing your own discomfort at the same time trying to take care of them and, be a role model and a leader for them.
That's a beautiful question. Um, it was easier for me to take care of myself having responsibility of so much life.
Yeah.
So at one point I had 12 kids and 4 adults that I'm
Mhm.
leading, and I'm responsible for everyone's comfort. So I have to take care of myself. And I learned how to do that. I learned so much self-care. But to be honest with you, I didn't really have time to process emotionally
Mhm.
feeling discomfort, feeling uncomfortable. It just became my natural state.
Yeah.
Um, I learned how to work through that. Um, I learned how to work through it, and I would process myself later, like emotionally how I was feeling. But in the moment, all I cared about was being a leader, making sure everyone else was okay. Um, and that was fine for me. That's why you don't really stay in that kind of job for a long time.
Yeah.
But I learned how to work under pressure, and I really learned how to put so many other people before myself. But I recognized I had to find, like you said, that fine balance for
Yeah.
taking care of myself. So I would schedule time um, to leave the group, or wake up at 5 a.m. before the kids get up and go and wash my skin and my hair in the waterfall.
Yeah.
Maybe it was nighttime and maybe it was really cold, but it was my quiet moment to
Mhm.
myself. And I would do that.
And so you still were able to find time for yourself, but I love that you said I didn't have time to be uncomfortable. It just became my natural state.
Yeah,
That's awesome. I
yeah.
love that so much. So I want to go back because we kind of left off with those first couple of days and the, kind of kids that are sort of in denial and maybe there's a little bit of aggression and, they don't really want to be there. So, you know, keep taking us through this journey because like obviously things change. Like there's a shift that happens and maybe there's multiple shifts that happen. I'd love to hear about some of those changes and some of those shifts that happen and maybe even some my guess is that these happen in moments too and you probably see them happen.
Yeah. I'm laughing because I'm thinking about the craziest time I had with these girls, and we were in Panther Town Valley. Have you
Okay.
been there?
Uh-uh.
Okay. Okay, they call it the
Here in North
Yellowstone.
Carolina.
Yeah, they call it
Okay.
the Yellowstone of the East. It
Okay.
is wild, wild black country.
Cool.
This is my first time leading children out there, um, and we had the worst rainstorm you could imagine. I was wet. I was soaked to the bones personally for probably 2 to 3 days, where I didn't get to dry my things because I didn't have a tent. I had to sleep in front of the kids' tents in case they try to run away, and, there was one hole in our little tarp, and it just filled my sleeping bag, and I was soaked. So we're all miserable. Of course, they're fighting and they're screaming and they're being dramatic, and someone's running away in a lightning storm. We keep getting flooded out our base camps, so we'd have to pack up everything in the rain, sludge and hike our way up through a river that's flowing. It's miserable. Like, if you can think of misery, like, this is misery,
Yeah.
misery. And think of children who are looking at me like, "Are we gonna die?" And I'm like, "Maybe, but we're gonna keep going." Not really, but so just pure misery. I have one kid freaking out, going off to a cliff somewhere, saying they're gonna jump off, but they're not going to, but they really want love and attention.
Yeah.
I have another kid who's terrified of lightning, like pure trauma of lightning and screaming and shaking. And the kids, we're just all huddled around a fire. I have snot rolling down my nose trying to keep a fire going
Yeah.
in a windstorm because it's freezing and I'm scared the kids are gonna get hypothermia.
Yeah.
Um, so it's just like those moments of crisis when you really bond and connect with people the most. So think of like the chaos and misery of that, and then the storm passes,
Yeah.
and we wake up and the sky is blue again, the sun is out, it's warm, and that first breakfast of grits, warm grits you have in the morning, and everyone's mood is lifted, and you realize, dang, we just got through like a whole storm together.
Yeah.
Um, and just the smiles on the faces, the hugs, and the reflections around the campfire the next night of, remember, like so and so is doing this, ha 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 ha. And just seeing a group go from pure hate and
Yes.
like and violent aggression. Like they
Yeah.
would really fight each other because where are they going to put all this anger except on each other? And to go from that overnight to pure like joy, understanding, compassion, appreciation for one another, and to see them form a true sisterhood, a family. You know about the trails family, a trail family. When
Yeah.
you go hiking with a group of people, you leave truly as a family. You learn about each other. You grow through a journey together. So just to witness that development of true unity, of a team, of a family in the moment come together through life-threatening situations is really beautiful.
Yeah.
Really scary in the moment, but afterward,
But I
you can
think
look
that's
back.
I think that's part of it, and you painted such a really
Mhm.
beautiful visual of that. I'm just like I actually could feel like the chaos and the, with the weather and the screaming and the fighting, and then like, all of a sudden somehow you got them to go to sleep.
Yeah,
And the next morning you wake up and the sky is blue, and all of a sudden, like what I sensed was there was like a gratitude that the storm had passed, and it was like, wow, we made it and we did it
yeah,
together.
yeah, it feels very accomplishing to get through something like that, not only by yourself, but with other people, and you'll never forget that. And I
Yeah.
would always tell them through journeys like that, next time in life, when you've graduated this program, maybe 10, 20, 30, 50 years from now, and you're going through something difficult in your life, think back to this moment. Think back to this day that you overcame and you backpacked 10 miles through a storm, through snow, through hail, through lightning, and you did it. And we're having this beautiful moment, watching this beautiful sunset, enjoying this beautiful waterfall. Beautiful waterfall. Think back to this moment for the rest of your life
Yeah.
that you overcame, and you will overcome whatever you face.
Yeah. It is. It's that overcoming. I'm thinking back to Bill Barty, who was a guest here on this podcast, and he talked about the kind of phases of adventures and how like the first part of an adventure is the anticipation of it, and then this on the back end, it's the recollection of it. And so we don't ever anticipate and look forward to storms and fighting and all of that chaos. Like we don't wish it, we don't want it, we don't look for any of it. But then when it's over, we don't remember like, oh, remember the like that boring night when we just sat around and did nothing and like everything was perfect. We don't remember that. We remember the chaos and the fact that we got through it. And man, that's just such a I mean, that's the magic of what you do, isn't it?
Yeah. I like to say when I go backpacking, the fun part is when it goes wrong and you learn to adapt in those it's right. That's true that you remember. Um, but it teaches you how to adapt in life in general. It teaches you resilience. And that's the adventure of life.
Yeah.
The hiking, the trip, it never really ended because like you just referred, and I want to watch the episode. Who was it? Bill
Bill Barty, yeah. So he said
Barty?
he said that adventure is 20% anticipation, 80% recollection, and a dose of reality. And I
Ah,
just
yes.
love that quote. But
Uh-huh.
the funny thing is, I was thinking about you, like when you're in that dose of reality, right? When you're in the moment, like, are you able to recognize, like you said, when things go wrong, that's the fun part. But like, are you able to recognize in that moment that this is what it's about?
Mm.
Or is it the recollection afterwards? Do you know what I'm saying?
Of course, after, because in the moment you're like, I have to survive this. I have to survive this. But a different like part of you comes forward. Like, I don't have time to be scared right now. I don't have time to be worried. I don't have time to be angry. I just have time right now to be present.
Yeah.
To be present, to one, stay alive, to support other people, and to overcome.
Yeah.
um, but afterward, that's when you can look back and reflect. Okay, what could I have done differently? What did I appreciate that I did right in those moments?
So you've got this group of girls. They kind of go through this experience of chaos, which leads into the next morning and gratitude, and like things have changed that next morning. So like what happens from there?
The cycle repeats. So the kids are predictable. They go through a beautiful day together, and then things start to get a little tense, and then things build up, and then they fight, and then they heal, and then we get back together and we repeat. And that would be the journey.
That's amazing.
Just accepting each other, supporting each other. If it's not this kid freaking out, having a moment that we're all supporting, tomorrow it's going to be someone else.
Yeah.
And then we learn from that person. And then we move on to the next day. We learn from the next person. But everyone was going through something, like even myself. Like if
Yeah.
I have an injury, so now the whole group as a unit, we have to cope and adapt to that one person's
Yeah.
injury or that one person having a bad mental day. It affects us all. You can't run from it. You can't just leave people when
Yeah.
you're in the woods, you know?
But I just can't even comprehend how cool that must be to just watch this happen. And I'm curious if you can recall any experiences of like specific kids that were, really in denial at the beginning and didn't want to be there and maybe were aggressive, and the change that you saw in them and maybe how they expressed gratitude to you and kind of their change of mind. Any specific memories that you have of those kinds of experiences?
I have so many memories, but I don't know. When you're talking, I just kept thinking about this one young woman I had. Um, we were hiking up a mountain for 6 hours in the cold. It was freezing cold but wet, and it was very windy, and the temperature is dropping. And we were 2 miles away from the campsite, and I just heard her knee go snap.
Oh,
And in that moment, and you're 2 miles away, everyone's kind of mad. Like, why do you have to get hurt now?
yeah,
But to see the determination of this young girl in so much pain, she was in so much pain that if she even moved a little bit, she would like scream. And of course, I did my protocol, and I have to call back to my
yep,
base camp and let them know like, hey, this child's injured. How do we move forward? And they're like, she's gonna have to make it, or she gets helicoptered out. That's how it is.
yeah,
Get them to the camp, get them warm, get them fed. So I'm like, okay. So I go to her and I tell her the news, like, you're gonna have to make it another 2 miles, or you gotta get helicoptered out. But
yeah,
even then, like, that's a whole journey, and
yeah,
it's just gonna be painful. So no matter what you choose, I'm gonna help you.
right,
And she chose to keep going. And it's pouring rain, and it's about to be dark. Um, and everyone came together to support her, carrying her pack and helping her walk. And despite all the pain she was in, like, she did not quit. She kept going. Not that she had a choice, but she could have given up, and she could have. And I have seen that in a kid where they give up. They sit there, and we sit there with them, and we could be more comfortable, and we can't. But just to see so much bravery and strength in a young woman, I've never been through that. I've never had an injury like that.
Wow.
But to see her make it through was amazing. And her attitude never once shifted, even after that. Never used it as an excuse to go home, which you can't. You just go to the hospital and you come back to the program when you're healed. So kids can't use the excuse to, I'm going to injure myself so I can get out of here. Like, no, you're going to delay it. You're not going to go home for even months longer. But she inspired me, and I hope she hears this one day that to see that type of power and strength in a young woman, it was so impressive. It was so impressive.
The perseverance is really incredible.
And all the other girls watched her. So now when another kid got injured in that group, no excuse.
It's infectious though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's a great story. Really. So this 90-day journey, and I know you're kind of coming in and out. You're not in there the whole time, but what is the end of the sort of 90-day cycle look like for these kids?
Okay, so by the end of the program, these kids can build a whole primitive fire on their own and sustain it. They know how to filter water. They know how to pack their pack. They have probably journeyed maybe 100 miles over the course of 3 months with everything on their back. They have worked with their therapists, processing what they need to process, writing letters of accountability to their family. So healing the relationships with everyone in their life, healing within themselves, going through all the phases of character development, integrity, honesty, leadership. And by that time, they're ready to go home. And those kids are ready to go home because it stops the energy within them would switch from, oh, I want to go home, I want to go home, I want to go home to actually, wow, I'm so proud of who I am today. Hey, welcome to this program. Like, I have overcome this within myself. I can't wait to teach you how to build this fire. And they just become little balls of inspiration to all the new kids of this program is going to help you. And I know you hate it right now. And the kids would tell the other kids this, and I'd be like, yes. You're going to hate it right now, but I promise you're going to learn so much. And you're going to be so proud of yourself.
And that's the hero's journey, right? They come through it, and now it's their turn to share with others, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. So have you had the opportunity to witness sort of like the kids being like reuniting with their families at the end of it?
I have seen it from a distance and up close, where the kid would want to introduce me to their parents, and it was really beautiful. It was always very emotional.
Yeah.
Obviously, you don't see your kid for 3 months,
Right.
and you don't know half the things that they're experiencing. They can write about it and we'll tell you about it, but they weren't there with them, but I was. And so I get to look the parents in the face and tell them, like, your kid's strong. Your kid is amazing. Good
And,
job. I know your kid was giving you a hard time, but you have a good kid.
and
You have a
so
good kid.
how often do you see some of the participants say to their parents, how could you do this to me?
I think they're just ready to go home at that point, but I'm
Yeah.
sure later they're like, "What the heck?" But no, all of the, like, things that they had cursed their parents about, that all disappears the moment they see each other, and it's beautiful. 'Cause like I said, remember that gratitude of having a hot shower,
Yes,
gratitude of
absolutely.
a hot meal. Like, I would dream about pizza. I would dream about pizza and tacos and
I dream
things
about pizza
other.
after 2 nights in the woods. I'm a
That's what I'm saying.
90 days. That's a lot.
So you come home to your family. Can you
Yeah.
imagine that? That the first time seeing your family in months?
Yeah. Really, what is it about nature and the wilderness that creates such a perfect environment for this? This doesn't seem like you could do this in a city or even in a, suburban kind of setting. I mean, why is the wilderness such a great place for this?
Sorry, my dog is drinking water. Um, I'm waiting for her to stop. She's really thirsty right now. I don't know if you can hear her. Oh, why is the wilderness a perfect place?
He's drinking away, but it's okay. We can
Okay, good.
dump this part out.
So
Or
sorry.
maybe our listeners want to hear the dog. What's the dog's name?
Lex.
Lex.
Okay.
He's having some water. Hey, you know what? It's one of the lessons of being in the wilderness is you have to stay hydrated.
Yes. Oh, yes.
So you're a good
Water.
teacher. You're teaching Lex.
Water is the first thing you need to
There you
survive.
go. That's
Um,
it. That's right. So what
um,
is it about nature that creates such a great environment for this work?
there's no walls or barriers to run from or escape to, not only within yourself, but externally. And at home in society, we have so many things to numb and to hide from, whether it's, people, our friends in our life, going somewhere, entertainment, going out to eat, everything in your house to distract you from what's with inside of you. But when you're in the wilderness, you're absolutely 100% present with everything that's within you, and there's nothing to distract you. So now you're forced to look at yourself. What is there? Who am I? You can ask those questions and actually have the opportunity to receive an answer
Hmm.
from deep, deep, deep within.
Hmm. Well, and that's a really great lead in to the person that you've become as a transformation coach. Before we go there, how has this experience as a guide changed you?
It allowed me to break free of all the conditioning of who I thought I had to be. I came into that job and my career I have now as a young woman, fresh out of college. So I got to break free from everything that I was told I had to be or thought I had to be,
Mhm.
and allowed myself to be my true self. So I always refer to it as I pursued my authentic path. And I was supposed to be a doctor. I had a promising medical school seat. I was a prestigious honors medical scholar. That path was already set in stone for me, and I could have been very successful at it. But there was a calling, and I chose to follow it. And I recognize and I see now and I honored it that I can be a healer. I can change the world without being a lawyer, without being a doctor, but being like truly all that I am, but allowing that who I was to unfold and find out who she was by taking that journey, my adventure. I got to discover her. And through her, I get to inspire so many more women, especially women of color, to go outside and find that they're themselves as well and have that journey to heal, to empower, and to transform your whole life.
Yeah. Wow, that's really profound. And you touched on the fact that there was a point in your college career essentially where you heard a calling, and we talk about that on this podcast quite a bit. But at such a young age to be able to recognize that calling and to be able to follow it,
Yeah.
that's rare at such a young age. I'd love to hear just like what was it, what was that like to answer that calling, to first of all to get that calling and then to be able to tap into that and know.
Hmm. Well, anyone can ignore the call, but the knock it's just gonna get louder and louder. And for me, I was witnessing that within myself, um, as I was pursuing this career that in my heart I knew it wasn't for me. I kept getting sicker physically. So by my senior year of college, I was extremely sick. Like I was throwing up every day. I was having severe just anxiety of coping with, exams and stuff. Not because I wasn't smart, but because I didn't want to do it.
Mhm.
And I recognized that how can I be a doctor, be a healer, if I am not healed,
Yeah.
if I'm not happy? And then I had a mentor, a doctor, tell me, yeah, about 68% of doctors regret being a doctor. So if you choose something different, honor it. I trust that Rayleigh, you're going to be successful no matter what you do. And when I heard that, I started asking, okay, what is his call? And the call for me was to go and work on a farm in the mountains because I wanted to experience what it would be like to heal through my life, a complete lifestyle change where I grew my own food, I drank the cleanest water, I worked with the land, I got to be present in nature all day. What would that do to my health? Like, how could I prevent so many diseases I'm witnessing within my family? So I chose that journey to heal not only myself and the recognition that as I heal myself, I'm healing generational disease and I'm inspiring other young people to pursue something that, yes, it builds them up and inspires them, you love it, but can you stay healthy while you do it? Because what's the point of pursuing a career if you're dying
Yeah.
as you do it?
Wow. Really, you have a wisdom that's beyond your years for sure, and it's really impressive. I'd love to just hear briefly about kind of where this whole journey has brought you. Now you're a transformation coach. Can you tell us just a little bit about that?
Mm. Yes, so as I pursued farming, I also pursued other healing. For me, I'm very passionate about mindfulness. So I became a certified yoga teacher, meditation teacher, um, pursued the wilderness therapy because I wanted to add nature guiding into that practice. And now I can share all those medicines through my coaching. And so, yes, I'm a yoga teacher, but to me, it all makes sense to apply it to life, to apply it to breaking conditioning. So the whole point of like yoga, for example, is to do movement and stretch that breaks the conditioned patterns of your body that you do in normal day-to-day life that is causing you pain. Okay, well, you do that with your mind as well in yoga. So that's what meditation is for, to observe the patterns of your mind, especially negative thinking.
Mm.
Okay, how can I plant a different, healthier seed of thought? Okay, so now I apply it to your whole life in that perspective. And how can we use the tools of gardening or farming and yoga and meditation and deep breathing? And how can we add those mindfulness techniques to your life to help you become more aligned and healthy? And it's simple. It's that simple.
Yeah. Wow. So you're really what you've really been able to do is kind of take all of your experiences up to this point and kind of bring them into something that you've become really passionate about and helping other people to find the way. So you've got a bright future ahead of you. I'm curious what some of your aspirations are as you kind of move forward into the next phase of your journey.
Mm, my aspirations. always have always have more right when I achieve it. There's always more to go.
Yes.
Um, and I wanna I know that I wanna help millions of people, and I don't think that I can coach personally millions of people, so I would love to move into book writing and film education,
Mm.
which I love my position, that I have with Black Folks Camp too, because I'm in the space in the outdoor industry where I can be in position to lead nationally what it means to go outside and why we should, and I get to inspire women, especially women of color, to explore these spaces, not only as a in terms of business entrepreneurship, but healing and empowerment, pursuing life paths that you don't think about. So I would love to move into that space, and I'm gonna go for it. I'm gonna keep pursuing that adventure.
You got an amazing energy, and
Thank you.
I'm excited to keep watching you. And you get to work with Earl Hunter Jr.
Yes.
And he was episode 20. The great folks at Black Folks Camp too. You guys are doing some amazing work over there. Um,
Yes. And I met him through my last shift to wilderness therapy. It was
okay.
divine timing.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, great group of people, and I'm just proud to know you guys, and proud to be able to support what you all do. I am so thankful that you were able to join us for this awesome conversation. Just a couple of final questions here. I do want to just ask what advice that you have for people that like you were at that point in your life when you were able to listen to that voice inside and you were able to follow that voice, but sometimes we experience fears and doubts and resistance. Like what advice do you have for people that maybe are feeling that call to adventure but they're just not sure, or maybe experiencing some resistance?
Mm. Pursue it. Go for it because you're never gonna get the validation you want to feel safe. And like I said earlier, we agreed upon a get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because if you don't take that leap, if you don't take that risk, that knock is just gonna get louder, and you're gonna wish you answered it sooner. So you might as well answer it now and to give yourself your own validation and see where it takes you. See where your heart takes you.
See where your
Your
heart
joy,
takes you. Love it.
the adventure is
I love
always worth it.
I love it, really. Okay, so you know that when it's all said and done, Hollywood is going to want to put your name in lights. They're going to want to tell your story and they're going to make a movie about you. And when they do, I want to know who the Hollywood actress is going to be that's going to play you in this movie.
Okay, I'm sure Earl probably answered the same thing, but I'm gonna be it. I'm gonna be the actress.
Awesome. I love it.
I
You're going to
I'm
star.
sure that's super basic to say, but yeah,
Hey, you said
I'm
you
not.
wanted to inspire millions. You're going to write books and you're going to create content and you're going to be the actress in your own movie. I love it. You're going to play yourself.
Yes. I think there was a Netflix movie I watched recently, The Incredible Jessica James, and the
Okay.
actress's name is Jessica, and she wrote her own movie, and the movie is about becoming a playwright. So you get to see the fruit of
Love
her
it.
dream
I love it.
as she's acting in it. So I would love to do that. That would be
There you
amazing.
go. I love it. So, Rayleigh, what is your movie going to be called?
I thought about this as a book title, so no one steal it, but something along the lines of like journeys and transformation,
Journeys and
something like that.
Transformations. Love it.
Yeah,
Love
I
it.
don't know. We'll see.
Starring Raileigh Duschen. That's going to be a great movie. I can't wait. Well, Rayleigh, thank you so much for being here. And for those folks listening, I hope that you've been inspired today as much as I have. I hope that Rayleigh's story has encouraged you to listen to the voice inside that calls you to adventure, because we want to hear your story next. If you have a story to tell or you need a nudge to create one, please send me an email. We'd also appreciate it if you'd help us spread the word by leaving a review and sharing or tagging Inspire Campfire in your social media. And until next time, I want to encourage you to get outside. Thanks for listening. Rayleigh, thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. Namaste and enjoy the journeys wherever they take you. And I hope we cross paths and enjoy a campfire sometime.
Thanks, Rayleigh.